Now, do you remember a year or two ago, Kevin O'Leary was all about MindMed back when we had the previous CEO J.R. Ron. Now he's gone, but back when we had the previous CEO, Kevin O'Leary was all over the place talking about MindMed, he even participated in a roundtable discussion with ARK Invest founder and I guess CEO, lead investor, Kathy Wood. Um, MindMed was all over Kevin O'Leary's like content. Maybe like a good 5 to 20% of his stuff, of his verbiage on YouTube during like a period of a few months was on MindMed. So what happened? He's not talking about it anymore at all. Not at all. What happened? Now we could talk about where the stock is. We could talk about where MindMed went over that period of time, but I don't think that's the main consideration. I think the reason Kevin O'Leary stopped talking about MindMed is simple. Once the stock started tanking, he started looking into it more and he realized that there are certain risks, reputational and regulatory, the two big R's, reputational and regulatory, that were impacting him. Now, Kevin O'Leary is a Canadian businessman. He has diverse interests, but he's big. He's big. He's a big man. He's big in terms of the need to comply with regulatory requirements, basically. He's big enough, especially with the businesses he engages in. The show, there's not too many regulatory requirements. He's just being an actor. But in his real stuff, he's the head of a fund or a set of funds called the O'Leary Funds. These O'Leary funds, you can go online, look them up. You can invest in them. Um, they're more prominent and more well known in Canada. But the O'Leary funds, look them up. These O'Leary funds, they're a financial product, and they're subject to strict regulatory requirements. Now, it's not like he's putting these stocks in with the O'Leary funds. It's not like the O'Leary funds are buying it, but maybe kind of he woke up to the fact that, hey, recommendations mean something else post 2020. Recommendations mean something else in the 2020s with Reddit and the meme stocks and all the craziness, and maybe he wanted to back off. Maybe he wanted to back off and he was afraid. That's the regulatory piece. The reputational piece is, dude, a ton of people probably invested a lot of money in MindMed and other psychedelic plays, but specifically MindMed, because Kevin O'Leary was all up about MindMed. For him, diversification was diversification of molecules, not diversification of management, not diversification of the CEO, not operational diversification. For him, he's like, oh, I'm going deep in MindMed. I remember at the time, he said this many times. He said, I'm going into MindMed because it's the most diversified in terms of the number of molecules they were pursuing. That may be true. Maybe other psychedelic firms are pursuing a smaller number of molecules that they're trying to get through FDA approval. But there's still these other risks. You can't just say, oh, it's all about the molecules. You have to consider all the other ways in which you're exposed deeply when you're investing in this kind of brand new, crazy, wild space. So maybe more diversification is required. Maybe you can't fall in love with any single company quite yet. Maybe you have to go sector wide, which is what I'm doing. And remember, this is not financial advice. This is purely for entertainment. It's infotainment, as some would say. But hopefully it's useful in infotainment as well. So Kevin O'Leary just stopped talking about it. So where am I going? Where am I going here? Let's get back on track. We talked about the reputational. We talked about the regulatory. So the reputational is obvious. People are losing money, and his name is going down. People are commenting negatively on Twitter, on Reddit, on StockTwits. Hey, I invested in MindMed because Kevin O'Leary told me it's a good idea, and now I'm losing money. Maybe people on Shark Tank were complaining about it. Maybe it was getting a little bit unpleasant, a little nasty, and maybe he didn't want that, so he closed it off. He stopped yapping about it. So that's Kevin O'Leary. Is that come on? Are we going based on what Kevin O'Leary says, or are we thinking long term? Are we thinking 10 years out? 20 years out, and are we thinking about what could potentially happen if and this is a big if the FDA approves psychedelic medicines? Now we don't know which ones they're going to approve. We don't even know if they'll approve any of them, and we surely don't know. We definitely can't pick which chemicals, and we definitely can't pick which companies. That's why I propose and I support a very diverse approach, to investing in this new psychedelic sector. I think it should be agnostic to the molecule, and also agnostic to the CEO at first, until we see later on what firms are going to be BS and what firms are not. That means I'm looking into Field Trip, I'm looking into a Thai, Mind Medicine, of course. But I'm not thinking a few years out, I'm thinking 20 years out, and I'm taking very, very prudent positions. I'm managing my risk prudently, not going all in, because in my stage as an investor in my life, I can't go all in like that. I can't risk all my capital. Now, some people can. Some people can risk even less capital than I'm risking at this. So there's a spectrum to this. We may talk about that in the future as well. Yeah.